Rachel Goldberg Holland said that during the time of her son Hirsch's captivity in Gaza, that every Friday night she went out onto her porch and she put her hands in the air, directed her attention towards Gaza, and she gave Hirsch the priestly blessing. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yihuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. This prayer is among our most ancient of blessings, and it originates in this week's Torah portion. An archaeological find, maybe Eric can tell me more about this, in the burial chamber in Ketef Hinnom. Is that right? Yep. Should have Eric come to speak about this. South of the Old City in Jerusalem, shows that this blessing goes back as far as the 7th century BCE, when the first temple still stood before the Babylonian exile. So it's the oldest text from the Hebrew Bible ever found. The scrolls, which were 2 tiny folded silver scrolls with different versions of this blessing, must have been used as amulets by the ancient Israelites more than 2,600 years ago. Any corrections to that? Okay, all right. It's amazing, right? It's fantastic. So we continue to say these ancient words in our daily liturgy. And for hundreds of years, Jewish parents have blessed our children with these words at our Shabbos tables. So Birchat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, is in fact 3 separate blessings that are linked in a kind of a prayer poem. The literary structure is very elegant. Bible scholar Jacob Milgram describes it as a rising crescendo. You'll notice that if you look closely, there are 3 words in the first line, 5 in the second line, and 7 in the third. There are 15 consonants in the first line, 20 in the second, and 25 in the third. So Rabbi Shai Held says the sense conveyed is of increasing, overflowing divine blessing. Some commentators say that this prayer begins with prayers for material wealth, then builds to our spiritual needs, culminating in a synthesis that asks for the ultimate prayer, that of shalom, of peace. So I want to focus today just on this middle blessing. It's literarily gorgeous, and it seems simple, but I think it might be theologically a bit complicated. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha. May Adonai make divine light shine upon you. Ve'yihuneka. And be gracious to you. Give grace to you. The Degel Machane Ephraim asks, so if God causes divine light to shine on us, what additional grace is needed? Shouldn't divine light be enough? What is this quality of chen, or which we translate as grace? What does it mean? It's something subtle yet powerful. I've heard it described or explained as unearned blessing. Some say grace is surprising. Picture a figure skater gliding across the ice on one leg. Imagine the effort that must have taken to make this dance look so effortless. That is grace. Let's look at 2 biblical characters who are described as possessing this quality of chen, or grace. One from the very beginning of the Hebrew Bible, and one from the end, Joseph and Esther. So in Genesis 39:21, we read that Vihi Hashem Adonai was with Joseph, Vayet alav chesed, and he extended kindness to him. V'ten chino be'enei sar beit sohar, and he disposed, this is the way it's translated, he disposed the chief jailer favorably towards him. But it means that the chief jailer had this quality of grace or chen towards him. And then we read of Esther. Vatihi Esther noset chen be'enei kol ro'enu. And Esther found chen, they translate it here as favor, this word, grace, in the eyes of all who saw her. So Joseph and Esther, if you think about it, share certain qualities. First, they're both described as physically attractive, but I want to argue that this is a type of physical attraction that's actually about a sort of magnetism. They draw people in towards them. They are able to succeed through a combination of charm, bravery, and cunning. They have excellent timing, and they understand when and how to take action. They move through the world, in other words, like that figure skater, balancing on a slippery, dangerous surface and making it look relatively easy. But what really makes them graceful is that they do not take the credit for their actions. They don't use their abilities to further their own agendas. Rather, they act as a channel for divine will. Years ago, in the days before podcasts, I caught an interview with Joan Jett on the radio. I learned when Joan was a young teenager, she wanted an electric guitar. She wanted to play rock and roll. Each of these things was extremely unlikely in her time. Think of her most famous song. There's a line in that song, "Put another dime in the jukebox." It sounds very quaint to us now. But of course, at that time, it was radical. Girls didn't play electric guitars, and girls didn't sing rock and roll songs and form bands. When her first band, the Runaways, fell apart, Joan was only 21 years old, and she described in that interview how she was completely bereft because she thought her musical career was over. Well, of course, we know that that was just the beginning. Last summer, my daughter Talia and I had the opportunity to see this 66-year-old godmother of punk rock out in Raleigh at an open-air stadium, and it was gorgeous and inspiring. But the part of the radio interview that most struck me, that actually brought me to tears, was not this story of her unlikely rise to stardom or her staying power. Rather, it was how Joan told her story. It was her way of being in the world. Her story was not her story alone. She refused to take all the credit, or very much of the credit, actually. Everything she said was about what somebody else had done for her. Her parents bought her her first guitar. Her producer made sure that she had the successes that she achieved. At the end of the interview, Joan said, "I was just a conduit." She was not just humble. She was fierce and she was daring. But more than that, I thought, wow, she is really gracious. And I think that maybe being gracious, having that quality of grace, is our human way of partnering God. We see this quality of grace all over our liturgy. We see it in Ashrei that Isaac just led us in, Chanun ve'rachum Hashem. We see it in the Amidah, blessings for chen and chesed and rachamim. And when we say that someone is graceful in English, we often mean that they move beautifully or that they know what to say. But grace is more than that. It's being able to inhibit an angry, bitter response and instead choose kindness. It's being thoughtful in our movements, in our speech, in our actions. The ice skater glides across the ice as if ice is all that there is, with singular focus. When you're standing on one leg, it's impossible not to be present in the moment. In English, we speak about grace under pressure, and we speak about aging gracefully. We understand then that this quality has everything to do with how we approach a task. Look at a difficult turn in the road ahead, and the most important question is not what's going to happen next. The most important question is, how are we going to approach it? Grace doesn't mean that we bury our emotions, but it also does not mean that we act solely from our emotions. We act with our values and with a certain type of understanding or sensitivity. Back to the priestly blessing. The Torah specifies that this blessing is for Kohanim, for priests to give to the people. That's what we read in Naso, our portion today. Yet today, each of us, all of us, are empowered to extend this ancient blessing to others. Rabbi Shai Held says we are the channels of blessing, not the source. That's why, perhaps, the formula is specified. When I give this blessing to my children on Friday nights, I sometimes think about a lesson that I learned from a friend years ago. He said that when he gives this blessing to his children at the Shabbat table, he silently adds an extra blessing. He asks God to help him to be the parent that each one of them needs. And I thought, that is really chen. That's grace. The ability to channel the divine and to be what each situation or each person needs. Rachel Goldberg-Pollen, with her raw and impassioned yet decisive tone, has taken on a role that she never hoped or asked for, certainly. That of an advocate, a spokesperson for the hostages, insistently speaking truth to power. But she also speaks truth to love. Hannah is a 14-year-old kid who lives in Massachusetts, the child of one of the Chabad rabbis in Massachusetts in the Berkshires. And she met Rachel when she visited Israel before October 7th, 2023. And this 14-year-old kid wrote a letter to Rachel when Hirsch was murdered. And Rachel wrote back to Hannah hours before Hirsch was buried in Jerusalem. She said many things, but Rachel wrote in part, "Hirsch will shine his light onto us, and I know one day I will find joy again. I will hear laughter, and I'll turn around, and it will be me. I just have to get through this tough spot." How we get through the tough spots, that's a question of chen, grace. May we all be blessed to feel God's light shine on us, even and especially in times of strife and confusion and sorrow. When the world feels like a sheet of ice, may we be blessed to glide across it with grace. Shabbat Shalom.